Today we're going to be comparing three of the most popular budget night vision devices together in the same video: the NVG30, the NVG10, and the Nightfox Prowl. We'll be doing a tabletop comparison and testing them out side by side at night to show you everything that they're capable of and highlight their pros and cons to help you decide which one of these setups might be best for those of you looking to get into affordable night vision. There will be links down in the description below in case you want to pick up any of these devices and help support my channel. And for full disclosure, I do sell the NVG30 and the NVG10 on my website Goodnight Gear, but this video was requested a bunch of different times in the comments, and I will give you completely unbiased feedback about the performance of these devices to help you guys get a better idea of their strengths and weaknesses. We'll start off with a side-by-side view, and on the left we've got the NVG30, in the middle we've got the NVG10, and on the right we've got the Prowl. The NVG30 currently sells for $445.50 from Goodnight Gear using the coupon code US10. The NVG10 is just under $300 using the same coupon, and the Prowl is available on Amazon for about $250. They are pretty similar in weight despite the Prowl being much bulkier, and they all give you the ability to manually adjust the focus and make diopter adjustments as well. Each one runs off of an 18650 battery, but battery changes are much simpler on the NVG30 and the NVG10 because all you need to do is unscrew the battery cap and pop in a new one. And with the Prowl, you'll need to use a screwdriver to take the battery in and out, which is a little bit less convenient. Both the NVG30 and the Prowl have onboard USB-C charging, and you can run these devices while they're plugged in, which opens you up to running external battery packs for increased run times with these devices. And with the NVG10, you'll need to rely on an external charger and no onboard charging, which is a bit of a pain. The viewing screen inside the NVG30 is rectangular and has a 40-degree field of view with a 1920 by 1080 OLED display with a maximum of 40 frames per second. So the image that you're going to see is much sharper compared with that of the Prowl, which has a 45-degree field of view and a lower resolution 360 by 360 screen with 30 frames per second during the day and only 20 frames per second at night. But the circular shaped screen on the Prowl is nice and it mimics what you'd see on an analog device. The NVG10 has the most compact 25-degree field of view with a similar 1920 by 1080 OLED display with a maximum 30 frames per second. Here's a look at video views from these three devices overlaid on top of each other to give you a better idea of how their field of views compare. And the NVG10 is in the very center, and that one's going to be the most compact, and in my experience it's relatively difficult to navigate with, so it's going to just be good for scanning your surroundings. The NVG30 surrounds the NVG10 and provides a significantly wider field of view, and the Nightfox Prowl is in the outside image and provides an even larger field of view, but both of these two devices are much better suited for walking around with. With regards to onboard illumination, the NVG30 has a 1W 940nm IR emitter, the NVG10 has a 1W 850nm IR emitter, and the Nightfox Prowl has both 940 and 850 IR emitters, and both of these are 2 watts, so the Prowl definitely does deliver the most in this department. The 940 emitter is well suited for indoors and for mid-range outdoor use and is less visible to other people with the naked eye, but the 850 emitter is going to be slightly more powerful and better for seeing longer distances, but it is going to be more visible to the naked eye, and this is most prominent on the NVG10. It is nice to have both combined on a single device, so Nightfox definitely did well with this feature. For hands-free options, the Nightfox Prowl comes with a headband style mount and also a dovetail, and it also looks like you can pick up a bridge to run dual Prowls and a fast mount compatible option as well. The NVG30 comes with a mount which you can use to connect to a fast compatible helmet, which is also available from Goodnight Gear, and also a dovetail mount. And there are some Bino bridge setups, and these work really well, and I'll post a link to a video going a bit more in depth into those options down in the description. The NVG10 also comes with a helmet mount, and a headband can be picked up separately, but due to the size of these units and location of the batteries, they're not an ideal unit for Bino bridging in my opinion. The UIs are very similar on the NVG30 and the NVG10, and it shouldn't take you more than a few minutes to grasp all the features, and they're both very simple systems to operate in the dark by feel alone. The button layout is a bit more complex with the Prowl, and this setup is a bit tougher to access and less intuitive to operate by feel in the dark. Now we're going to take a look at some video from each of these devices to give you a better idea of how their performance compares. The NVG30 records 2K 2560 by 1440 video, and we're going to be looking at footage recorded directly to the SD card, and this is definitely the superior video recording setup in the bunch. The Prowl records 720 by 1280, and this footage was also recorded directly to an SD card, and the quality of the video here is also quite good. The NVG10 will record 1920 by 1080p, but we're recording this footage from a video feed transmitted to a phone via Wi-Fi, and the performance wasn't the best tonight, and it will cut out from time to time, but just keep in mind that the experience looking through the monocular itself will be much better because you won't have the same issue. Here's a look at how video recorded from these devices compares side by side. The NVG30 is on the top left, the Prowl is on the top right, and the NVG10 is in the center bottom. In terms of quality of the image, there's no question question that the NVG30 provides the most detail and the most contrast. The video is super crisp and it's really easy to make out your surroundings in great detail, and the experience looking through the monocular is also very similar in terms of clarity. The video quality on the Prowl is inferior, but it's still pretty good relatively speaking. However, it is important to keep in mind that the video looking through the monocular is not going to look nearly as good. There is a lot less contrast on the Prowl, and lighter areas tend to get more washed out. The video from the NVG10 is the most grainy, but this is just a recording related issue, and the performance looking through the device itself is much better. Another huge difference I noticed when looking through these devices is lag. The NVG30 definitely offers the closest to real-time performance with the least amount of lag, particularly with 40 frames per second selected, and it does seem to maintain this performance for extended periods of time with no issues. With the Prowl, the effect of the lag is much more noticeable. During the day, the Prowl isn't too bad, and I was optimistic at first, but the frame rate drops and the lag gets worse in low light conditions, and the longer it runs, the worse it seems to get. The NVG10's performance in this department is closer to the Prowl, but it is more consistent and stable compared to the Prowl as time goes on. Now we're going to test the performance of these devices with both IR illuminators turned off, and the night this was filmed, the moon was in a waxing crescent phase with 1% illumination, so these are some relatively difficult moonlight conditions, and we do start to notice some pretty significant differences between the performances of these monoculars. This test is going to be important for those of you concerned about giving off an IR signature, which will be highly visible to anybody else running night vision devices, and you want to keep a low profile when using the device. This is another category that the NVG30 sets itself apart, and it is a decent amount better than the NVG10 and significantly better compared to the Prowl. In many of these shots, the NVG30 is the only device that's able to detect anything, particularly in the darker areas that are hidden from moonlight. There are some areas where the NVG10 is able to perform well, and it does provide a reasonably bright image in a lot of circumstances, but it doesn't keep up with the contrast or the clarity provided by the NVG30. With the Prowl, you are definitely at a huge disadvantage with no IR, and this would really only be feasible with full moonlight or in the presence of additional ambient light sources. We're going to wrap this video up pretty soon, but before we do, I'll leave you with my final thoughts. If you can afford it, the NVG30 is definitely the best device of the bunch, and it dominated in every category and really only fell short to the Prowl in the field of view. The device is compact, helmet mounting options are great, and it performs well with both IR and no IR, and in my experience, walking around with them has been the best of any budget digital night vision that I've tried, and that experience becomes especially good when running a bino setup. If you're on a budget and not concerned about running IR light, then the Prowl is still a good option to keep in mind. The field of view is excellent, and the performance was definitely lacking with no IR, but the only other downside was the latency and the lag, but obviously certain compromises are to be expected when dabbling in the realms of budget night vision. For observational purposes, the NVG10 is still a great unit. While the field of view is pretty constricting, this won't be an issue if you just want to use it to be able to scan your surroundings and don't need to rely on it for walking around with, which is much more difficult compared to the other devices. The performance is still pretty decent with no IR, and there is even an upgrade to the NVG10 on the horizon, which seems to have addressed some of the device's shortcomings, and I'll be sharing some info about that device as soon as more becomes available. Hopefully this video was helpful for those of you looking at putting together a digital night vision setup. Let me know what your thoughts are on these devices down in the comments, and again, there are links to these down in the description which you can use to help support my channel.